Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Ben Bateman.
And I'm Andrew Guy.
And we are the Action Guys. Psych.
Boom! Psych! It's good to be back, man.
It's really good to be back. I have other people doing the Action Guys intro, and sometimes they think it's cool. Other times they think it's not. They never think it's cool.
Well, it's not cool.
No.
I mean, we still don't think it's cool.
We don't think it's cool at all.
Roka did a great job when I had him on.
He's got a good voice.
That was the last time that I did the show, I think, was with John.
Yeah, because I did the last two without you.
Yeah. You had Snyder and Riley on? Is that right?
I had Riley for an X-Men episode, right? Or No, top 5 R-rated comedies.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had Snyder on for the PTA versus Quentin Tarantino.
Which is perfect because it's another week of Quentin. We're going to be talking about... We just saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Well,
yeah.
I just saw it. You saw it about a week ago.
Yep.
And we have pretty polarizing opinions on it.
Yeah.
You could check that out if you guys want on Action Movie Anatomy, the show that we tape every single Monday on the Popcorn Talk Network.
Yeah, that episode's available currently. But we are going to be doing the definitive rankings of all Quentin Tarantino's films today. And we have separate lists because normally we would do one definitive ranking. But Tarantino, separate from most directors, has probably one movie that is widely regarded as a classic, and all the rest of his movies are pretty polarizing. They're enjoyed to varying degrees. He's probably made one of the most iconic films in the history of film, and definitely in the last 30 years. Other than that, though, all his movies are kind of all over the place, and so it should be really interesting for us to voice our opinions on his movies and, in general, where we think the best and the worst are and why. Yeah. But before we get fully into those lists, I want to remind everybody here, this is the Action Guys here on the Collider Podcast Network. You guys are listening to this, then you know we've been doing this show for about 6-7 months, so a huge thanks to Collider for hosting this show. You can find a full video version of this if you just happen to be listening and not watching on the Action Guys. The original show is on the Action Industries YouTube channel, so it's just youtube.com/Action Industries. We do live streams there 3 times a week. We post full episodes of this. We post sometimes special additional content. I posted a review of this movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, last week.
He posted you singing, which was very nice.
I've been posting covers. I'm working on my newest one.
Yeah. So I started listening to it in the car, and then I was like, I should not be doing this. I should not be watching Instagram stories while I'm driving. I've been trying to get better about it.
Yeah.
What's the new song?
It's the song, the Don Henley song, The Boys of Summer. You know that song?
Oh, yeah.
It's one of my favorite songs of all time, and the other night I started dicking around with it, and so I recorded like a little snippet of it this morning. I sang it on the stream last night, but it was a literal like impromptu, like just the first time.
Streams love when you sing.
Yeah, well the mic's really bad though, so
it blows out.
I'm gonna need to get.
I need to give you my other mic. I have an extra mic.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a good mic.
Great.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm gonna take this one. It's off camera.
I'll sell you this mic for $50
right now. And I'd like to say that this mic stinks, and I haven't been here for a couple weeks, so I'm putting that back on Makuga. I don't even know if he sits here. But it's his fault. I think it's actually Christian that sits here.
There's Roxy.
Is it?
Well, I don't know. Cody probably knows, but he's not listening.
He's not listening. He's already left. Big shout out to Cody Hall. He's going to be a father in a few weeks, so that's huge.
Yeah.
Another thing to shout out, guys, patreon.com/Team Action. It's a way to keep up with everything that we're doing. We're trying to figure out new content that we want to start putting on that page. We're thinking maybe trailer reactions. You know, you got this whole singles cover music thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
I've been playing more games on Twitch, but that's not really... It's not really dedicated directly to the Army. We used to do a lot of movie trivia Schmodown stuff specifically on there, but we're trying to branch out. So check out patreon.com/Team Action, and down below in the, description or comments above the comments, you'll see that we have a link to the Action Guys Live in New York City. We'll be doing that in August, right before the Schmodown live show.
It's a live show on a Thursday night, 10:15, the East Village New York Comedy Club. Tickets for sale now. Tickets are going fast. It's really exciting to see, and we're super hyped about it. So go check it out. Get yourself a ticket. If you're a patron, you guys get a coupon, a discount code.
Yeah.
So just if you already a patron, make sure to send a message, and we'll get you that coupon code again, so you can buy yourself tickets. Drive in. We're gonna do a meetup afterwards. Hang out with people. It's gonna be unbelievable. We can't wait. It's New York City, guys. It's the Big Apple.
I've never been. So I'm very excited for my first time to ever be in New York, to see the Schmodown, to perform live, and also just eat and drink everything. That's what I did in China.
You love to eat and drink when you travel.
I do.
So if you were me, you would be as fat as a house.
Yeah, I could not live your lifestyle, because when I'm on the road, it's literally like, oh, I'm going to be flying today? Let's start drinking. It's 10 a.m. Let's start drinking. I'm going to get a burrito on the way to the airport.
Yep.
Or like McDonald's breakfast.
Hey, man, because you're not in airports that much. But like when any like particular kind of food that you associate with traveling?
Well, no, because when I do travel, I go to like very specific like destinations I've never been before.
Right.
Whereas like you might, like for instance, you're going to Indiana. I
Yeah.
don't really know what Indiana is known for food wise.
Yeah.
But like for me, it's like when I went to Japan, it's like I got ramen and dumplings in the airport, and like in China, I did like authentic Chinese food. They have like these handmade meat pies that are incredible. So I basically just go and eat whatever's like the most popular thing there that's horrible for you, and then I drink whiskey.
Everything in the Midwest is just barbecue and fried food.
That sounds
Just
amazing.
you can get barbecued fried whatever. My travel like go-to things that I do. Okay, so there's two pretzels, right? There's Auntie Anne's and there's Auntie Anne's and Wetzel's.
Yeah.
And they both have the hot dog bites. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The mini hot dogs that are wrapped in dough.
Yes, I do.
I think it's the Auntie Anne's are better than Wetzel's, and there's more Auntie Anne's in airports.
You don't know until you're in the element.
I never know which is which, but the airport hot dog bites, pretzel
That's a
bites,
thing.
that's the thing I get. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's always something incredibly indulgent, and then I always just drink a lot. That's just like I love to drink when I fly. I don't know why.
Yeah, don't live my life.
Speaking of drinking, Leo loves to drink. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, whiskey sours. Big fan of whiskey sours.
It's so crazy. You put the egg whites in there.
Yeah.
He's doing it in the movie.
Oh wait, that was when he was making margaritas. That's a thing.
Egg whites and margaritas?
Yeah.
I think it's the whiskey sours too. No, am I wrong about that?
Oh, is it? I thought he said he was making margaritas, but it would make sense for him to not be making them.
No,
'cause he
margaritas
always...
at the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm
when he's
saying.
making the thing with the egg whites. That's the whiskey sours that he's making. He takes the pitcher out when he's learning his lines on his old recorder in his pool.
Yeah.
God, there's a lot about that movie I loved.
I know.
There's
I did like the recorder on the pool. So something in Spanish.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's good.
So, guys, that's what we're doing today. Go check out those tickets for New York Live if you want to come meet action, hang out with us. And where can the folks find you, Andrew, if they want to follow along with your exploits?
My address is you guys can find me at Andrew Guy on Twitter and Instagram.
You guys can find me at Ben Baby Media, Twitter and Instagram, and at Action Industries for all the stuff we do, except for on Twitter where we are Team Action Show.
Yeah.
Let's jump straight in. Number 10.
Number 10. Well, so a lot of times when we do this, we have like qualifiers, right? And I was thinking like what are the things that Tarantino's most known for? He's known for his kind of like little bit off humor, but it's funny. It's just like his style of humor.
Number one, he's known for dialogue. Period.
Yes.
Bar none. End of story. That is the number one Tarantino thing. He's known for writing the most clever, coolest sounding dialogue that's ever been written.
Sexy dialogue.
Yeah.
He's really known for building tension in scenes. Very long, drawn out scenes where you know at the end it's like the longest stick of dynamite, like the what are those things called? It's not a wick.
A fuse?
A fuse. In China, we call it something. Yeah, the fuse. And then also, it's usually there's a pretty wildly violent scene in the movie.
Right. His movies have a lot of violence, and there's also a tremendous number of pop culture references.
Yes.
Almost always.
Yes, that's all very true. So these are all things that kind of came into making our list. Now, again, these are our own individual lists, something that we don't do as often. So these are sheerly based off of our love and respect for the film, because he's a great filmmaker.
Yeah.
Even about the movies I don't like, the movies that he makes that I don't like, you can still admire the quality of his writing, directing, the cinematography, the pace, all these things. So
I think we'll start. We'll break this up into three categories. Let's
Okay.
say. All right. So normally when we do definitive rankings, there usually are three. There's usually the clunkers, there's the medium stuff, and then there's the cream of the crop. So I think the cream of the crop always should be your top three, because if you talk about a director, their top three movies should be like the solid gold. If they were remembered for three movies ever, it would be these.
Yep.
So let's start with the back end, the clunkers. And I think in Tarantino's case, because his filmography is pretty solid, we're going to say there's two clunkers. Unless I'm wrong and you don't think he has any, but I would say two clunkers feels about appropriate.
yeah, that feels fine, and it's funny because ours are different, which is funny. I think we're gonna have 4 different movies right now. Or no, I think we'll have 3 different movies.
I think our lists are wildly different.
They are.
Which is kind of crazy.
They're usually we've always had a very similar taste in film since we were friends working in a bar. So my number 10 movie, the worst film in Tarantino's filmography, is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
It's so crazy you think. I just don't agree.
I know. I know you don't.
I really liked the movie.
I liked it a lot as well. Like the more like
You just think he's that good where his worst movie is still pretty good.
for sure, and I also think it's because like if Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was one of his first films, I would give it a lot more credit. I'd give him more slack. I'd have it way higher up in my list. I honestly would.
Yeah.
But it's just the idea that he can be working as long as he has, get the acclaim that he has, get the actors, the budget, everything, and then give me this movie.
Yeah.
I just didn't think, and this was your thesis on the Action Movie Anatomy, I just did not think Sharon Tate needed to be in it. And even after talking with our producer, Kevin, over at Popcorn Talk, he talked to me about how it was basically a love story to this part of Hollywood, this slice of his life.
Because I think Kevin and Tarantino are probably within a few years of each other.
Exactly.
And it does sort of make sense if you think about, like, if you were, because I mean, so if you're in your mid 50s, right, at this point, that means you're born in like 1965 or something like that.
Something like that.
Right? Like, my math is correct there. Yeah, you're probably born in
right.
like 55, which probably means that by the time you're getting to this like end of the 60s era, you're a straight up teenager. You are a hippie. You are the age of, like, you're on the young end of it, or maybe you're high school age. So you're kind of watching through the lens of being the age-ish or within a few years of these characters that are portrayed. And so that time period and the crazy, like, sexual revolution and all that stuff that's happening is probably something you find incredibly interesting. And no matter if it's a good movie or a bad movie, you probably are pretty captivated by the scenery because he did an amazing job.
He did.
At creating that world.
And again, that's what I talk about. It's a testament to his filmmaking. The world was brilliant. Everything, the costume design, the set design, the makeup, everything was so dialed that if it weren't for all those things and the charisma of the three leads, if you will, two leads mainly, it would have been a horrible movie. Whereas Quentin could, like, you go back and you look at Pulp Fiction. Now, obviously, Sam Jackson has one of the greatest performances in all time in that movie.
Yeah.
Maybe his greatest performance, but I still think you could have not had superstars in that movie, and it would have been phenomenal.
In Pulp Fiction.
In Pulp Fiction.
I mean, at the time, I would argue that
They
Sam
weren't.
Jackson wasn't a superstar.
No, that's what I
right?
mean. That's what I mean. But you learn that they have become. They always had it in them.
Yeah,
you know
right,
what
right,
I mean?
right. Totally.
So, what's your clunker? Is it Death Proof?
No, my number 10. You guys know I'm doing this project called 100 Movies I Missed, and it's a list of 100 movies that I wanted to watch. Whether it's a movie that's a classic, like a true classic. Somebody's like, oh, you've never seen E.T. and I'm like, yeah, I guess I got to watch it this year. I'm doing a Twitter review of all of them. And I'm way, way, way behind on this now. I've watched about 35, and we're well past halfway through the year. So
it's because you hit this movie.
It's because I hit The Hateful Eight, and I can't finish it. I've tried 3 times. I've watched an hour 20 of the 2 hours and 48 minutes that it is, and I hate it so much. I just can't bring myself to finish it, and I feel so guilty about it that I refuse to move forward. I did move forward. I watched Notting Hill. And then I reviewed it, and I was like,
it was wonderful.
And it was great. And I was like, I can't watch another movie because then I'm never going to finish Hateful Eight. I have to finish this movie if I don't. And, I watched enough of it. I just think it's such a self-indulgent piece of shit.
Yeah,
it's
okay, so even my girlfriend, who does not watch movies, has seen The Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
And she thinks it's all right. What is your disdain for this film?
There's so many things. It's like, it feels at this point in his career, the movie that is the most like, okay, so I'm going to write all these characters that sound exactly the same. And not only that, but they're all going to be played by the exact same people. Maybe I'll switch it up a little.
Right.
But it's all the exact same actors I've been using for like 20 years, saying the same things in the same way, with the same tonality, talking to each other like they're the same person. And already that's just like frustrating because I'm like, these people are not all this clever. And then the second part is like, second part of it is like, I don't need to hear Kurt Russell use the N-word 50 times.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. I get it, man. Like, there are some scenes where you have that, and like you are utilizing racism as a tool to paint a character a certain way. Characters in movies talk in a certain way, and you can make them do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But by the time I watched Hateful Eight, I just found myself sitting there, and every time I was just like, just make a different movie then. I just am so tired of it. And I found it hard to get through the movie because it was slow and boring, and I just was like, this is going to all end and a bunch of these people are going to die. And
yeah, exactly.
I don't find what's interesting about this.
Do you know how it ends? Like how it actually ends?
No,
like
I've
what
heard
happens?
the last hour there's some crazy twist or something. I'll probably honestly tonight finish it because
just because of this.
Yeah, because I feel so guilty, and I think people are going to rake me over the coals for this because like I'm ranking a movie I've never even finished.
Yeah.
But I hate it. I seriously
hateful.
It's funny too because my parents, who are like not movie people, my dad was when he was growing up, but they went to see this movie together. My parents have been divorced for 25 years. They're just friends. They're close friends.
So they went together?
Yeah, in 2015.
I didn't even know this. This is an interesting story for me.
Yeah.
Please continue.
They walked out 25 minutes.
Oh, they did?
They asked for their money.
Both were done.
Asked for their money back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you realize or did you notice or think about the racism in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and like the lack thereof based off of... I mean, there's like that one line is like, oh, come on, man, don't cry in front of the Mexicans, which I laughed at.
That's funny.
And like half the theater laughed. But did you feel like Quentin had reeled it in a little bit because of, or do you think that there wasn't really an opportunity?
You mean he didn't just have a white character using the N-word a lot just because?
I mean, that's what he does.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe he just was, after making Hateful Eight, he was just like,
I should probably chill a little bit.
I need to go back to the well on this one again.
Yeah. I mean, for all of you guys that don't know, we've talked about this time and time again about Denzel Washington confronting Quentin Tarantino on the set of Crimson Tide in front of the entire crew, cast and crew, stopping production and wanting to have a full conversation with him. And Quentin said, why don't we talk about this? We're not on set. And Denzel was like, no, I'd like to have that conversation right now.
Yeah.
And they did. And I don't really know how it went. Okay. I don't really know how it went, but it's just one of those things where we're not hating on Tarantino. It's just something that's very obvious in his films. So
I've actually talked about it enough recently that I almost think it's overdone. I don't feel so strongly about it that I think that like the uses of it that are poignant are bad. They're great. It's just this particular movie I've had a really hard time with for a lot of reasons. So that is my 10th movie.
Number 9 for me is Death Proof.
Also my number 9.
Yeah, and why don't you take this one then?
Well, this is a really weird part of Tarantino's career, right? So it's like he makes this movie as a double feature with Robert Rodriguez, and it's supposed to be a very like 70s pulpy grindhouse is what it's called. They're grindhouse films,
grindhouse film, yeah. Grindhouse horror movie.
And they're supposed to sort of be these like really campy, tongue-in-cheek, sort of throwback style movies.
Gory, over the top.
Yeah, and he knew what he was making. They're kind of B movies, right? He wanted to make a B movie, but like as a top-tier director. And it was on the heels of the second Kill Bill film was a few years later. And
he'd also just done that, he directed part of Sin City.
He had a scene in Sin City, yeah. And so this came out, I saw it in theaters, I remember, and saw the full event, the 4 hours. And it's just unmemorable. I've never had any real desire to go back and rewatch either of the movies. I remember Kurt Russell as like, what's his name, Stuntman Mike or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
And he like kills some characters
by slamming on the brakes when he's driving fast,
something like that. Yeah, and I watched. I went and watched the 2 movies that Tarantino referenced as the inspiration, which are Two-Lane Blacktop and Vanishing Point. They're both these 1970s like racing movies. Okay. And because I was a psycho in high school and did shit like that, and I went and watched them both. And I was sort of like, these movies are cool. They're all right. I don't have any real desire to ever watch these movies again either. Like, it's just Tarantino's obsessed with what he loves, and it's his prerogative to make these movies. But Death Proof's just a particularly uninteresting movie.
Yeah, I think I've seen the whole Grindhouse thing twice. Once because I was obsessed with horror for a really long time, and then another time to see if I still like them because I wasn't as obsessed with horror, and I just felt whatever about it. So those are both our number 9s. What's your number 8?
My number 8 is going to be this is crazy. So we've just finished off the clunkers.
Yeah. So now
we're into the middle category and the middle section, which is I guess just sort of we'll just call this the weight of his career. Maybe the middle. This is the middle.
The good but not great, but not bad.
My number 8's Django.
Really?
Yeah, Django Unchained. Django's got some awesome stuff to it. When we watched it on our show recently and reviewed it, I was pretty blown away by how much I enjoyed it. I remember watching it in theaters and thinking it was a solid 45 minutes too long. And obviously, this is one of the examples where that use of the N-word is just, this is the subject you're making. So, like, I'm not gonna begrudge your characters for using it. I think that this movie's great. I just think it's really long. It's really, really long. Like, I thought the good stuff was better than I remembered it, but I still did feel like it needed to be 30 minutes shorter.
And the thing with me that makes Django kind of fall down, and I'll get to it. Actually, I'll just save it for mine. But the third act does get a little crazy. Yeah. I think they could have reeled it in a little bit and still made it like punish all the slave masters, and it still would have been amazing without him being like a superhero.
But you have all these great scenes. Like, I mean, obviously when Jamie Foxx is whipping the dude, that's super memorable. You have like the entire exchange at Candy's mansion, that whole entire everything from like Samuel Jackson's character, which is great. To just like him with the skull and like seriously, Leo was amazing in this movie.
Leo was so good in this. So my number 8 is Jackie Brown, and I'm going to use that word that you said. It was unmemorable. It's good. Yeah. It's actually a pretty solid movie all the way across the board.
It's my number 7. So.
It just doesn't really make me go anywhere other than here. Even at the very end, I'm still just kind of, it's fine.
Yeah, Pam Grier is memorable, and Robert Forster's great.
They're both excellent.
Only Oscar nom for this, and this is Tarantino kind of at the height of his late '90s crime powers, where like everybody wanted to be in Tarantino's movies, and the cast he was going to use was all going to be like, Sam Jackson's in this movie, and you put De Niro in this movie, which is exciting. Everybody was so excited he was going to be in a Tarantino movie, and there's a lot of this movie that's great. It's the only Tarantino movie that's not written by Tarantino. It's a script that's adapted from an Elmore Leonard book called Rum Punch, and it's.
I kind of wish more of his writing was in it.
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, he probably could have made it more interesting. You have like, who are all the guys in this movie? You have Dennis Farina. You have what's his name?
I've seen it twice.
Michael Keaton is in this movie.
Oh yeah,
Right? He shows
I
up
think
as
so.
Ray,
Right?
Ray Nicolette.
That sounds right.
Yeah, he's like a cop. He's an FBI agent, I think. And there's some crossover to Out of Sight because it's another Elmore Leonard book. So I believe he shows up in both movies as the same character, Ray Nicolette.
Oh really?
Keaton does? I think so. Yeah.
Let me look that up. So my number 7, because I just said your number 7. Yeah, it is. That's actually 100% correct. Ray Nicolette, Michael Bowen, Robert Forster. Yeah, Bridget Fonda.
Maybe Dennis Farina's not in it. I think he is. I thought he was. Maybe he's he might just be an Out of Sight.
So my number 7's Hateful Eight.
Okay.
You know, just a couple spots higher. I like it a little bit more than you do. It's a little more memorable for me. For some reason, I don't hate it like in the way that you do because of I don't think I was as close to Reservoir Dogs as you were growing up, which is like that's where it really feels like he's repurposed a lot of the characters and the writing.
Yeah.
I like it just fine. I think it's okay. I do definitely believe it. It's way too long.
Yeah.
I think it's a little excessive on the racism, and it's pretty predictable as to what's going to happen in my eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just I've said my piece.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go my number 6. So this is still in the middle of the pack here.
Yep.
Kill Bill Volume 2.
That's my number 6.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird too because when these movies came out, I talked about this a bit last week. Like, I grew up watching Tarantino's movies, right? That was like a thing in my household. We loved these movies, and so when this movie came out, Kill Bill 1 and 2, it was such a departure in style. He was making a samurai kung fu type of movie, not like a crime throwback, and so it wasn't that it wasn't cool. It was just like, what are you going in? What are you expecting?
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to expect. And it felt like 2 was a little less action heavy, a little more dialogue heavy.
Yeah.
And so I remember like my answer, which I liked better, was that I didn't like either of them much, but I liked 2 more than 1. That was like my cool in high school opinion of these movies. In retrospect, 1's much better. It's a better movie. 2 is just like it's like 2 is more talky and.
Yeah, it's a little anticlimactic, honestly, like the way that it ends with Bill, I mean.
How does she kill him? She cut his head off?
No, she does the 5-finger exploding heart technique that was taught to her by Pai Mei.
Oh, yeah,
Which is like, he turns up and stands away and takes 5 steps and falls down. And, there's a lot of great tension in this. There's like that moment with her and Bill and the build-up, like before they go and have the talk on the patio. And I love her tutelage with Pai Mei, the cool tutelage of Pai Mei. Daryl Hannah's great, but it did feel... If there was a way to have made it into one long movie, or I mean, nowadays it maybe would have just been a Netflix miniseries, like a 4-part miniseries, like an hour long each episode. I think that would have been better. It would have served it better because over time, it's not a bad movie. I just don't really. Every time I've convinced myself to turn it back on and watch it, I'm just like, why am I wasting this much time in my life?
Right, and also like. Everything about Kill Bill that is discussed and is memorable is all from the first movie. Nothing from the second movie ever comes up in conversation. You can credit like her outfit, you can credit her music, you can credit like the crazy aerial camera technique that's like that full. You can credit the fight at the end, like you can fight the fight at the beginning with Vivica A. Fox. All the shit about this movie that people talk about and remember is from the first movie. The second movie literally never comes up.
Yeah, the only thing I really think about is just that the cruel tutelage of Pai Mei. That one excerpt is so great.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like. Mostly forgettable.
Yeah, it was really truly a situation where you didn't need 2 movies. You just didn't need to make 2 of these. Why did you need to make 2 of these movies?
And now there's like rumors that a third one could maybe be his last film, which I don't think he's going to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither do I.
So that's both of our number 6. What do you have at number 5?
So my number 5 is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
All the way up, halfway up the list.
Halfway up the list. This is right dead center middle of the pack. I think the reason I like this movie more than you is that while the meandering stuff and this movie being this like in some ways offensive story, this like long offensive story, is distracting. The stuff that's great about it is like find me very many other examples of 2 of the preeminent actors of their generation having this much fun together.
Tango and Cash, man.
Yeah, having this much fun together with like these well developed characters, the jokes, their relationship. Like there's so much about those 2 guys that I just like so much, and I definitely found myself throughout this movie, the 2 of them hanging out, just like it was so endearing. Like the 2 of them together, is like you're Rick fucking Dalton, and him trying to get him the job on the lot, and then like the scene with. I love the Bruce Lee scene.
Yeah, it's so good.
I love that like Brad Pitt like just sort of doesn't care when he kicks the guy's ass and makes him change his tire. He's a total badass.
Yeah.
The ending is great. Like it's hilarious and crazy. The flamethrower, him throwing the can with a dog. That stuff was all so good that I mean, all the stuff with him with the little girl, with Rick Dalton and the little girl.
Yeah.
I loved how. I loved the insecure actor, how well he played that character.
And you love that he has his little speech impediment when he's not actually acting, because it really comes through that he's not that confident in himself at all.
I love it. I love when Pacino's giving him the whole speech about his career, and he comes out just so shook.
He's just railing the cigarette.
Give me your sunglasses.
Tell me the fucking truth, man.
You feeling a little better? Yeah, give me my fucking sunglasses back. I loved it. To me, that was the stuff that I just couldn't get enough of. That was the stuff when I walked out where I was like, I don't know if it was correct to make this movie. I don't know if it was right. But that's why when I walked out, I gave it an 8. And I think it's probably more like a 7, 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4. But
if I didn't love that stuff so much, I wouldn't have been disappointed with the way that there was no payoff.
Yeah.
I don't care that he gets to work in a child molester's movie at the end of the film.
Yeah, right.
It just doesn't work for me for some reason, and that's why I said if it was one of his first movies, I think it would probably be at 6 maybe or 5, honestly. But it just didn't work for me. So my number 5 is Django. There's things in this and the acting in it, obviously, you get Christoph Waltz doing what he's best at again, being so clever and being great, being a good guy. Jamie Foxx, again, as someone that I don't really enjoy that much as an actor, I think he does a pretty damn good job.
Great in this movie.
He's awesome in this. I do think it's too long, and there's the whole superhero one-man gun show at the end thing does kind of bother me, because I think there's a cool and intelligent way to do it without going to the Quentin Tarantino, I keep using this. Let's blow Hitler up with a machine gun, or let's kill this girl and one of the Manson girls with a flamethrower. I think if he would have stuck in reality during that final shootout, maybe Waltz just helps him a little bit. Maybe he doesn't have, but the way that Waltz dies is great. I don't know. I just think that there's something they could have done differently to where it didn't take me out of a movie that was so serious, so poignant, so grounded the whole time.
Right.
Honestly, there was the scenes in that. You talk about the whipping and what about the dog scene? That stuff that really sticks with you. And then, the guys fighting. That's brutal stuff.
The Mandingos.
Mandingos. It's done so well. But there's something about that third act that it loses me a little bit.
Yeah. No, definitely. And the tension that's built the whole time between the way Jamie Foxx talks to DiCaprio and his disdain for him. That's all. It's great. That's the stuff. I mean, that's the thing is Tarantino's use and his ability to direct those scenes, but he also gets to work with the top talent every time.
Yeah.
The
true best in the world at the moment.
Yeah. So
you have Jamie Foxx and Waltz after winning Oscars, and then of course Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, right. Who's gonna make it? And that's why when you do see those movies that have casts like that are mediocre to bad, you're always just how?
Yeah.
How'd you guys take so many good people and find a way to not make this good?
Such talent.
That's the true sign of a good director versus a bad director is if you're making big budget movies, you're getting the money to make it, you should have access to those people.
Yes.
That's who you should be using. So can you make a good movie or not? Right?
And he always makes at least a good movie.
Always at least a good movie. Yeah. So just to jump back, just in case you guys are listening, only because you said this and I thought about it, Roman Polanski, child molester, I don't know, is that exactly what we would call it? I don't know that story that well.
He was in a hot tub with a 14-year-old girl.
Okay, you know the story. See, I don't know the story. I just wanted to make sure we weren't throwing the phrase out.
No, it's pretty widely regarded, and I'm pretty sure I'm not mistaken here. It was with him and Jack Nicholson in the hot tub and the 14-year-old girl, and he can't come back to America.
That's the part I know, but I didn't know if it was because he married somebody underage. No, that's Woody Allen maybe.
Yeah, Woody Allen married his daughter. His adopted daughter.
Okay. Making sure.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. The episode comes out, I'm just completely wrong.
So that's my number 5. Your number 5 is?
Was Django.
Okay. My number 4, Kill Bill Volume 1.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is by the virtue of our shows that this is.
Look this up.
This is moved up on my list.
Because you were not a big fan of this movie for a long, long time.
I saw it in theaters the one time, But what's crazy about it is, and this is the effect of sort of the industry and critics and iconography and just when a movie is such a phenomenon or makes such an impact 10, 15, 20 years later, you still find like people dress up as the bride for Halloween. You still find that people like in Schmoedown, there's like entrance music to the song from that movie. There's like, you still find like there are characters and lines and like shit that's just iconic from that movie that lasted in a way that stuff from Jackie Brown didn't. And like, right.
Like that always gets a rise out of someone, a reaction out of anyone.
And so, and that's one of the things Kill Bill does so well is like it's really interesting. It's really cool. It's cool that it's like a badass female in the lead. Like she's a total badass.
Yeah.
It's a true action movie. The sword fighting's awesome. Like there's a lot about this movie that's great. Uma's a fucking legend.
She's
like,
amazing in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really, really, really liked it. It's one of my favorite things actually about being a critic and working in the space is like when you have the chance to go back and watch something either for the first time or rewatch something for the first time in a long time that truly is a great piece of art, like, and maybe your sense of it, like you had some resistance to it because you just, I don't know, you never wanted to watch it, like some of the stuff on my list, or maybe you misremember it,
right?
And you go watch it and you find yourself like, it's literally my favorite thing in the world. It's like that moment when I'm watching a movie and I'm like, this is great.
This is a great movie.
Like I want to tell people how much I like this because it's just I'm so excited about
but then
watching.
You're like, oh yeah, this came out like 8 years ago, and everyone already knows.
Yeah,
it's great.
Exactly. And I'm watching it. And I'm like, this is just so exciting that this is so good.
Yeah.
When a movie is great, it's my favorite because we see so many bad ones.
Yeah.
And Kill Bill is great. It's a great movie.
It truly is. I love that movie, and I'll get to it a little bit higher on my list. Number 4 I have is a movie that I know is probably in maybe your top 2, Reservoir Dogs.
That's number 4.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is a movie that I had that same experience with. I watched it late. When did this movie come out?
1992.
92. So I watched this probably in 2002, I think.
Okay.
Maybe 2003. I was in high school, and I believe my stepdad at the time had a copy of it. And I remember like I stayed, my mom and him had got a new house, and I'd never been to that part of Oregon before, and I'd never seen this movie. So I just kind of like, I holed myself in my room and watched movies a lot. And this is one of the ones that I watched early on because I just knew. It's like Reservoir Dogs. Everyone talks about Reservoir Dogs, Usual Suspects, Goodfellas. Like there were all these crime movies that you had to talk about. And so I watched it, and I was like, holy shit. Like this is intense and intriguing, and who's doing what, and then the ear scene. I was like, oh my God, Madsen's a crazy person, but it's so compelling. You want to know, it has you to the last second. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And it's like, it does feel like it's I guess maybe the pinnacle of his crime dramas, honestly, because I don't really look at Pulp Fiction as a crime drama.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel that way as much for me. It's almost like a feel-good drama. Like, I don't even really know how to explain what it is to me, but Reservoir Dogs for me is like his greatest crime film.
There's something about, like, inspired originally, I think, kind of by John Woo and some of this stuff in the late 80s that then translates into Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, and then you get sort of some of it in, like, I'm trying to think of what other movies from the 90s were this way. I mean, Goodfellas in 1990, but there's something about the idea of, like, dudes in, like, black suits with white shirts and black ties with guns being, like, clever and cool that, like, people just really bought into in the 90s. And I would say that, like, from like, teenagers up through, like, people maybe, like, in their 20s or 30s, it was really impactful. Like, it really... Snyder was on here last week talking about how, like, Pulp Fiction made him want to be a writer. That was, like, what made a lot of people feel that way. My brother wanted to be a screenwriter. Like, a lot of people had that inspiration of, like, man, you can just create these characters. They're all so cool and slick and smooth. I mean, Heat's another one, 1995.
Yeah.
He's got the crisp white shirt. There's just something about the idea of the, like, slick criminal with the suit and white shirt that is just, like, I think people just buy into and they like watching.
It's exciting. It's romanticizing something that's horrible.
Yeah, and so Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction both have very iconic images of exactly that. It's like Jules and Vincent holding the guns, or whether it's the group of them walking together at the beginning of Reservoir Dogs. Like, those are the images people remember from those movies. So yeah, I mean, Reservoir Dogs is impactful. It's a great movie. All right, so that's the end of our middle. So we're into the cream of the crop now. Top 3. Top 3.
And it's pretty obvious, like, which movies we each have left over. But where they land is
there's only one. Yeah, there's only one. So I'll let you go first with your number 3.
So my number 3 is Inglourious Bastards.
Okay.
Probably yours as well.
Also my number 3.
Yeah, I knew it would be. And, I mean, that opening... I'll let you talk about the opening scene, because I know that's your favorite scene. Like, you wrote the other day it's the greatest opening in a movie ever. Is that what you wrote?
It could be.
It could be. Because, like, I think of, like, Saving Private Ryan, things like that. But this scene is perfect.
I watched it, because we covered it on the show last week. Ryan Nilsson, who's the producer over at Popcorn Talk, came on as a guest, and talking about that opening scene, I remembered in theaters thinking it was amazing.
Yeah.
I do. But for whatever reason, after watching it the first time, I guess the only thing I really remembered about the movie was that scene.
Him and that's Liev Schreiber, right? Wish it was.
That opening scene, and I remembered Hitler's head getting turned into pancakes.
Yeah.
And those are the two things about the movie that I remembered. I didn't really remember almost anything else about it. I mean, I knew the characters. I could remember like Aldo and some of his speeches and stuff, and
From the trailer. Aldo Rain.
Yeah, and there's stuff that I remembered, like the swastika on the forehead. I mean, there was things that stuck out in my memory. But when I watched it again, I mean, I was 15 minutes into the movie.
That little twerp from Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, yeah, Levine.
Big shout out to our Sam Levine, buddy of ours.
Our buddy Sam Levine. If not, I mean, honest to God, if not for Levine, probably in the fact that we've known him for the last couple of years, and that like it's such a running joke in the Schmodown that he was in Inglourious Bastards. I don't even know how much I would have thought about this movie. Like it comes up, but it feels like it's so much more on our radar because Sam's a good friend.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting. Like watching that opening 15 minutes, I was just like, I don't know if there's ever been a more impressive first time I've seen an actor in a movie ever.
For sure.
I also don't know if I can think of an opening scene in a movie that is as like holy shit as this scene. It's like masterclass perfection, just like
perfect.
And there's just so much about it when it's like 5 minutes in and he goes down under the floorboards. It's that, it's the drop down shot.
Yep.
Right. And like the way that Walt's like,
I know, you love how he just goes right through the floor, right?
Yeah, but he waits like 5 minutes, and like the way that you're not sure. And then like the way Waltz is asking questions, he keeps asking for permission for things. He's kind of like emasculating him with like, the comment about like, well, you're a dairy farmer. I know you have milk. Like there's just so many things about it. And then she's running away and he doesn't get her.
Yeah.
Like that movie, I can just sum up with that scene because the rest of the movie has some really good stuff. I mean,
the scene in the bar is that's the scene for me.
See, it's funny because that's what Ryan said too. That's his favorite scene. I thought that scene was good. It didn't feel quite as good. Like it felt good, but it felt more Tarantino-y.
Exactly. Whereas the first one is just a great scene in any movie ever. And not saying the bar scene isn't, but that one you feel, like you said, you feel Tarantino's kind of fingers being dipped in the pot. Yeah. Whereas in the first scene, you're like, that could be Scorsese, that could be Spielberg, couldn't be Cameron. It's too dark for Cameron.
Exactly. It could be literally any great director. Whereas the second one, it's like, of this gun pointed at your genitals, and like there's just so many things about it where you're just like, this all just feels like, just like I think there's too many voices.
Too clever.
Yeah, and I think one thing is that he likes to have a lot of voices, right? So he likes to have 6 different characters that all have a point of view that's interesting and unique and different. And he thinks because he's such a smart writer that he can make them all sound and feel different. But unfortunately for him,
they all sound like him.
When you write everything, and you have been writing everything for 10 years, they're all going to sound, or 20 years, they're all going to sound a little similar.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that second scene didn't do it for me as much. Though it is really terrific. I mean, that whole movie's great. Like, that movie's great.
Yeah, and I love Pitt as Aldo Rain. I really do. I love the idea of the bastards going and hunting down the Nazis. I think it's so cool. I do think that the Hitler thing at the end is weird, but it's also like, who doesn't want to see that happen to Hitler? We all want that to happen to Hitler. So, yeah, I love that it's both our number 3, because I think if you would have asked us maybe 3 or 4 years ago, it'd probably be like way lower in the pack, honestly, for both of us.
Love Melanie Laurent. She's just
wonderful,
beautiful, and like, oh man, did you know that she's a classical pianist?
No.
So you know that I am a psycho and I listen to a lot of music that has no words on repeat.
Have you been listening to her play piano?
I found on one of these mixes on Spotify called Peaceful Piano. It's like 50 tracks that are just gorgeous. And I turned it on, and one day I looked down and I saw her face, and it was like Melanie Laurent. She's playing like this amazing piece, and I was like, huh. That's the girl from Beginners and Inglourious Bastards.
Huh.
And I looked her up, and it's 100% her. So I mean, unless they just used her face on the cover, but it said Melanie Laurent, so I'm assuming it's her, and she's amazing.
That's incredible.
Gorgeous.
Yeah,
she's gorgeous.
You know how it is. You have to spread yourself as thin as possible, doing as many things as you can. Of course, she's a classic pianist that we don't even know about. Classically trained pianist.
Amazing.
My number 2 is your number 1, Pulp Fiction.
So crazy that it's your Kill Bill's number 1.
Kill Bill's my number 1.
Yeah.
And so I will talk about Kill Bill.
And I have Reservoir things to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to... Actually, why don't you go ahead and talk about Reservoir Dogs, because that's your number 2, and then I'll get into Kill Bill as my number 1, and then we can just both talk about Pulp. Yeah.
I've told this story before, but I was probably I couldn't have been older than 6 or 7, 8 maybe, and like we went to some like ski trip or something
I
somewhere.
thought you were gonna say some skeezy bar.
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino was in there.
My dad, my brother, my sister, and I. My brother's 9 years older than me. My sister's 5 years older, and you know, I was born with 40, so he's, you know, my dad's like, what, like at the time, I guess.
He's 40 years older than you. Oh yeah, he's the same age as my mom.
Yes, my dad was probably like late 40s at this point.
Okay.
And we were somewhere, and and there was like some cabin we were staying in. They had like a VHS tape player and like a TV, and there was like 300 movies. They had like all these VHS tapes.
Awesome.
Yeah, and like you could like choose to what movie to watch. And I remember like looking through all of them, and you know, I'm this kid, I have no idea what I'm doing. And at the end of it, like the movies that they had picked out were Goodfellas and Reservoir Dogs.
Your dad and your brother and your sister.
Yeah,
Essentially, that's what you. Okay, got it.
And they're like, which should we watch? And like there was a whole conversation that I was like trying to contribute. But I'm 7 or something.
I
so-
like toys. I like turtles.
And so in the end, we decided to watch Reservoir Dogs, I believe. Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction. Oh man, good. No, I think it was Goodfellas we watched.
Oh really?
I'm pretty sure it was Goodfellas we watched, but from that age, I knew that Reservoir Dogs was something I had to watch.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure it was Goodfellas because I can remember the movie opening in the red light and then burying Billy Bats
Well, your father's notorious
for showing
you.
extraordinarily inappropriate films.
Yeah, at a young age, which I think is actually kind of awesome because you know it's turned you into the movie lover that you are today. So you knew from this moment because you know he's your dad and your
Right.
brother too is the same way. You just idolize the movies that they want to watch. So you knew from that moment on that Reservoir Dogs is something that was respected.
I had to watch it, and like I can't remember if my brother had a poster on his wall, but like somebody I knew, it was maybe one of his friends had like a Reservoir Dogs poster on his wall because like there was character posters from that movie that a lot of people had, like Mr. Blonde or like Mr. Pink, and they're like leaning with their sunglasses and stuff. And so I just knew, and so I probably watched Reservoir Dogs for the first time. I couldn't have been older than like 11 or 12, and I loved it, and I found myself watching it more and more over the years, and like it's just so raw. It has the stuck in the middle with you know, ear cutting scene, which is incredibly legendary, and it has just the opening of him bleeding out in the back of the car, and Harvey Keitel talking to Tim Roth, and like the story, and you have to come up with this amusing story to get in with these guys, and like
Roth is like dying on the ground and later on, right?
yeah, he's bleeding out, and the cop is there with his ear cut off.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, and all the cops and Chris Penn, and like there's just that movie is just so fucking like it's just so like raw and compelling, and I've just always loved it. It's always felt like it's the predecessor in some ways to Pulp Fiction. It's so much less ambitious, but it's just such a cool movie.
Raw, I think, is a really good word. Like it feels like you're there with them instead of watching it. It feels like you're a part of it, which is gut wrenching. So yeah, my number one's Kill Bill. It's a big part of it. It's like when I watched it, I was probably 14 or whatever. You know, I remember watching it in my mom's. I watched it in my mom's room on her VHS little like VHS TV 13-inch combo.
Okay, sweet.
And it was because I was scared.
Yeah,
I don't know why I was scared. Like I didn't know what to expect.
you were scared of a lot of films.
I was scared of a lot of movies as a kid because my mom would always like. She used to tell me stories about how whenever she watched scary movies, she'd have nightmares for like a decade.
And also, the Catherine Zeta-Jones is the most beautiful woman in the world. Mask of Zorro.
Exactly. She always says this. She will still. If she listened to this episode right now, she goes, "He's right." I don't know why. So I remember like I would fast forward like maybe 30 seconds ahead sometimes and then rewind because it was so intense for me. I couldn't deal with it. I was even like at the end with Sophia Marceau, right? No, not Sophia Marceau. The girl that looks like her. Sophie is her name in the movie. Sophie, the like French girl that speaks Japanese as well. It's Lucy Liu's assistant. She gets her arm cut off. That
I don't
girl.
remember who it
So
is.
she's in the trunk and. I even remember at the end of the movie, even though after all the crazy shit had gone down, I still had to fast forward to see that she didn't like kill the girl in the trunk and then rewind and listen to what they had to say. I just love this movie. It was before because I didn't watch movies the same way as you did growing up. I watched them in a much more like naive way.
Okay.
It was just like I didn't know who directed it. I didn't know like anything about the writing. I didn't really know a lot about actors. Beyond like the generation that I grew up. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Beyond like the generation that I was like deep in. So for me, I didn't understand what a Quentin Tarantino movie really was. Yet.
That makes total sense. That's why this movie affected you so differently.
So this is the first Tarantino movie that I watched, and I felt what you felt when you watched Pulp and Reservoir. I watched this because I actually didn't see Pulp until after this.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to get around to Pulp Fiction. But when I watched this movie, and Uma's such a badass, and it's so violent, but it's not excessively violent. It feels, I mean, it definitely is at the end, but like throughout, like, you know, my name's Buck, and I like what she does to him in the hospital room and getting away, and like the training and the timelines and all that. For me, it was just like I got done, and I just like I have to watch this again tomorrow.
Yeah,
I don't know what just happened, but
Right.
I love it. The music, like, everything just felt so cool and sexy. It was literally every adjective that's ever been used to describe Quentin Tarantino are all the things that I felt when I watched Kill Bill the first time.
Well, you had like never seen a movie like that before.
Never.
Which is what's so interesting about it. I mean, you know what's one of the things you just said that really stuck out to me was that you finish it and you had to go watch it again.
Yeah.
And like that happened as a kid. I did that at The Rock. I watched it back to back, I remember once as a kid. And like it doesn't happen anymore where I finish a movie and I want to like literally watch it the next day. It's like one out of every 300 movies, maybe.
It's very,
and
like
even
once
then,
every couple of years, maybe.
You know, Infinity War I wanted to watch again immediately.
Yeah.
I wanted to rewatch the movie right away. And like there's not that many, even Endgame I didn't feel like I wanted to rewatch right away. Like it just doesn't happen that much.
Yep.
So it's really cool. It's also such a difference of how you are when you're like a kid and a teenager versus how you are when you're an adult. Like your time matters more to you. So what you love and the idea of experiencing that stuff, it has to be so impactful.
It has to be so important too, and you have to have a free day next day too. It's not just like you can do it.
Yeah, right.
The only two movies I can remember doing that for are Gladiator and Kill Bill.
Yeah,
those are the only two that I can remember just watching and being like, rewind,
gotta
start
do it
over.
again.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's my number one. Kill Bill is my all-time number one. Pulp Fiction is my number two, and Inglourious Basterds is my number three.
And my number 3 is Inglourious Basterds. My number 2 is Reservoir Dogs, and my number 1 is your number 2, which is Pulp Fiction. And I mean, I said it at the beginning of the show.
It is a better movie, I think, overall.
I mean, Pulp Fiction is again. Sorry to repeat myself, guys, because I talked about this a lot last week with Snyder. But Pulp Fiction's a once in a generation kind of movie. It's not like it's better than Reservoir Dogs and Kill Bill because it's just a better movie.
Yeah.
It's better because it's amazing, but it's also like this is a really interesting one. On the director's comparison, one of the things we talked about was the most iconic scene that director's ever directed.
So it's the drug deal gone bad and the heart scene? Is that what it is? What were they?
You're saying for each director?
Yeah.
I don't remember what we said for PTA necessarily.
Okay.
I think probably drug deal gone bad. There were some others. I think There Will Be Blood has some stuff. The ending of There Will Be Blood is pretty iconic. But what I said to Snyder was I'm pretty sure between the 20 movies directed by these two directors, all 3 of the most iconic scenes are from Pulp Fiction. I think all 3 of them are from one movie.
I can't agree with that.
I mean,
but I do.
I'll pitch them.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right? All right. So Jules and Vincent, Big Kahuna Burger, the double pan of them shooting, the poster, maybe the most iconic scene he's ever directed.
The opening of the movie.
Of Pulp Fiction?
Yeah. Is that what you're talking about?
No, like them when they that whole scene with him and Big Kahuna Burger and the briefcase, and then when they kill him and Ezekiel 25:17. So that scene.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's the beginning of the movie.
No, there's the Tim Roth thing of stuff at the diner, and then that all ends.
Right. But it's still within the first.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, the first 25 minutes. So that scene.
Okay.
The adrenaline shot in the heart.
Yep.
Also, and then there was a third one that came to mind. Oh, and then
the end.
Uma and John Travolta dancing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's arguably the 3 most iconic scenes, and I
thought you were going to loop together the Uma and John dancing as one with the heart. Like the adrenaline in the heart, and then you're going to do the very end scene with Ving Rhames and Bruce Willis and all that shit.
Great scene,
it's
just
gnarly,
not iconic in the same way. Like movies that have parodied the dancing scene.
I love the dancing.
Halloween costumes of overdosed Uma
still happening today.
And Jules and Vincent are the iconic hitman characters ever. They created those 2 characters in that scene created a fucking genre. Like a genre of movie came from the 15 minutes in that movie where they go and I can't think of a single scene from another Tarantino movie that's on the same level as any of those 3, and definitely nothing from a PTA movie.
Whoa. The drug deal gone bad, man.
It's great. It's probably my favorite scene ever in one of his movies, but I think if I go into a room of 100 people and try to explain all 4 scenes, I'll bet you most people know all 3 of the Pulp Fiction ones, and most of them probably have no idea about a drug deal gone bad.
Depends on the people.
You gotta love movies for that.
I don't. Yes, exactly. I don't entirely agree. I don't entirely disagree, but yeah, I mean, Pulp Fiction does just... He just had it. Like, that was his goal. That was the best thing he's ever going to make other than Kill Bill. Because Kill Bill, for me, again, it feels different. There's a different adoration there. But, yeah, as a whole, and what he did and the things he put together and the way he used all the actors at the time, the idea of using Bruce Willis when he was where he was at, the idea of bringing John Travolta back from the dead, essentially, to be this great character. and it's kind of like the pairing of Uma and Quentin Tarantino is one of the things we talk about the least in general. But like, I think that is actually the true. It's not Quentin and Sam. It's Quentin and Uma.
Yeah,
and what they've done together. Yeah,
those 2 or 3 movies, if you want to call it that, are amazing. And yeah, I mean, Pulp Fiction just flows so well. It feels so complete. There's the nonlinear storytelling is so cool. The way that like the way you see Vincent die with the machine gun, but it's like this disconnected piece of the story. Yeah. You get more of Vincent after.
I know when that happens, you're kind of like,
what?
What? Did that really happen?
Vincent and Jules, man.
He can't be dead.
You know?
No, he's not dead.
You know, and like Jules, because at that point, right, Jules has already stopped. He's already retired.
Yeah.
So Vincent's still working. So that's how that happens. So crazy. But
and there's also payoffs all the way across the board throughout the movie, which is one thing that I think doesn't happen in Once Upon a Time. That's one of the things that's why it's 10 as opposed to 1 is like you need those payoffs, and he has so many great ones throughout. Even if it's just bringing Uma back to life, even if it's just this great dance scene, even if it is Bruce Willis and Ving Rhames like not having a you and me anymore, you know, like
oh, dude, seriously. I mean, and just again, when you talk about dialogue. Like the stuff in the car talking about McDonald's in Paris and like those are just
and like the whole sexual tension between Uma and John is written so well.
And there's so many weird things that he tries in that movie. Like don't be a that they just work at the time because he's just like I'm gonna do this.
2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
I mean the Wolf, the Harvey Keitel stuff.
Yeah,
like, that movie's just so good. That's a movie where I watch it and I'm just like every part of this movie. We used every piece of the buffalo. There's nothing left behind. There's no dead scene. There's nothing. If you cut out, this movie's better because it's just like this amazing, and it's in a genre that lots of people want to play in. You talk about Kill Bill. Nobody makes mainstream kung fu movies.
No,
like that's not a thing. You don't like that is a unique movie. Pulp Fiction is just this like
it's in one of the most deeply entrenched, like every director wants to make a great crime drama, and all the great directors have great crime dramas.
Yeah, they've tried, you know, like you go watch like We Own the Night, or you go watch like Pride and Glory. You go watch these movies that come out where you're just like Brooklyn's Finest. Like
I know what you're going for here.
Yeah, like this could be cool. I get you've got this ensemble and there's corruption and like
what is that place Beyond the Pines?
Yeah, exactly. Crime dramas. Like some people love that movie. That movie's a piece of shit as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
But anyway, Pulp Fiction is just it's this generational movie that like if you were to talk about I don't know, like if you were to talk about the best 10 movies since 1990, like you know when we hit 30 years since 1990, you know, next year when we're on the 30th anniversary, sort of like what are the best movies of the last 30 years? I think Pulp Fiction has to be like top 5.
Yeah, you would think so.
It's a top 10 movie. I mean, like because you go through the list of the movies that have come out in the last 30 years at that point that have changed the face of movies that are just these like, and it's not even best. It's like most iconic. Like, it's like a Titanic level movie. That'll be a
fun thing for us to do.
Yeah, like you have to really think hard about like. Just because a movie's great, like Silence of the Lambs is amazing. I don't know if it's one of the 10 best movies in 30 years. Like he's an all-time level villain, but like probably just hasn't aged out as well as we would have liked. Pulp Fiction has not aged out for a second. It's like every bit is. That's why for me it's like it's not a quality question. It's just Pulp Fiction's here, and every other movie he'll ever make is here or lower. Because how could they ever be on that level?
Because he does everything that he's ever wanted to do perfectly in that movie.
Right.
He hits it all.
And he hadn't done it yet where he like had written like this is the first time we'd seen his writing, so like it all seemed fresh and new and cool.
Nothing was repurposed.
Yeah, it wasn't derivative. Like these characters were all beautiful and unique, and the actors all for the first time in Tarantino movies. Like other than a few of them that are from the previous movie, but
Roth.
Yeah, Roth and Keitel and a couple things. But anyway, that's going to wrap up our top 10 definitive Quentin Tarantino rankings today on the Action Guys. Guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Be sure to follow along with everything we're doing. Action Industries on YouTube, Action Industries on Instagram, on Team Action Show on Twitter. Get your tickets now for New York live August 29th. Come hang out with Drew and I, see an amazing show. Yeah. Drew may do some interpretive dance. We may, and we will definitely be involving audience members. Link is down below. Thank you so much for hanging out. It's so good to be back, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys. Bye.